Commander Jake Morrison stared at the communication panel with growing worry. The UES Horizon had been traveling for 3 months, returning from a mining survey near the edge of human space. They should have picked up Earth's signals by now. Traffic control should be talking to them. But there was nothing. "Amy, run another scan," Jake said to the communications officer. Amy Walsh had been trying to reach Earth for the past 6 hours. Her face showed the same concern that Jake felt. "Still nothing, Commander," Amy replied. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls. No signals from Earth, Luna Base, or Mars Colony. Not even background chatter. Lisa Carter looked up from the pilot station. She had been flying ships for 15 years and had never seen anything like this. "We're close enough to pick up orbital traffic. There should be hundreds of ships moving around Earth right now." Danny Torres, the ship's engineer, shook his head. "Maybe there's something wrong with our equipment. I can check the arrays again." "You've checked them 3 times already," Jake said. "They're working fine." He stood up and walked to the main screen. Earth was getting bigger as they approached, but something felt wrong. The planet looked normal from this distance, but there were no lights from the orbital stations. "Commander, I'm not picking up any transponder signals from the space stations," Lisa said. Her voice was quiet. "Nothing from Gateway Station, nothing from the shipyards, nothing from the defense platforms." Jake felt his stomach drop. Gateway Station had 50,000 people on it. The shipyards employed another 100,000. They couldn't all just disappear. "Take us in closer," he ordered. "But stay alert. Something's not right here." The Horizon moved toward Earth's orbital space. As they got closer, the crew could see the space stations through the ship's telescopes. The stations were dark. No lights, no movement, no signs of life. "My God," Amy whispered. "Where is everyone?" They passed Gateway Station first. The massive structure that served as Earth's main orbital port was completely silent. No ships were docked, no lights were on. It looked like a ghost town floating in space. "Any life signs?" Jake asked. Danny checked his sensors. "I'm getting some power readings from the stations, but no life signs. It's like everyone just left." "Or something took them," Lisa said quietly. Jake didn't want to think about that possibility, but he couldn't ignore it. "Take us down to Earth. Find a clear landing spot near Denver." "Sir, we don't have permission to land," Amy said. "Protocol says we need clearance from ground control." "Ground control isn't answering," Jake replied. "We need to find out what happened." The Horizon entered Earth's atmosphere. Jake watched through the windows as they flew over North America. The cities were still there. The buildings looked normal. Cars were on the roads. But there was no movement. Anywhere. Lisa found a clear area outside Denver and brought the ship down. The landing was smooth, but the silence outside was deafening. No aircraft in the sky, no sounds of traffic, no signs of human activity anywhere. "Everyone suit up," Jake ordered. "We don't know what we're walking into." The 4 crew members put on their environmental suits and checked their equipment. Jake grabbed a rifle from the ship's armory. He hoped he wouldn't need it, but he wanted to be ready for anything. They opened the airlock and stepped outside. The air was clean, maybe too clean. There was no smell of exhaust or industry, just the natural sense of grass and trees. "This is creepy," Danny said through the suit radio. "It's like the whole world just stopped." They walked toward Denver. The city looked normal from a distance, but as they got closer, they could see that something was very wrong. Cars were stopped in the middle of the road, their doors open. Some had crashed into buildings or other vehicles, but there were no bodies anywhere. "Where are all the people?" Amy asked. Jake was wondering the same thing. 8 billion people lived on Earth. They couldn't all just vanish without a trace. They entered the city center. Office buildings stood empty, their windows dark. Shops were open but abandoned. Food was still on tables in restaurants, but it had been sitting there for weeks or months. "Look at this," Lisa called out. She was standing in front of a strange crystalline structure that hadn't been there before. It was about 10 feet tall and shaped like a twisted tower. It glowed with a soft blue light and made a low humming sound. "I've never seen anything like that," Jake said. He approached the crystal carefully. His suit's sensors went crazy when he got close to it. Commander, I'm getting some kind of energy reading from that thing, Danny said. It's not like any technology I know. Amy pointed to another crystal structure down the street. There's another, one over there, and another one past that. Jake looked around the city. Now that he knew what to look for, he could see the crystal structures everywhere. They were scattered throughout Denver, each one humming with the same strange energy. These things weren't here before, Jake said. Someone or something put them here. But where are all the people? Lisa asked again. Jake stared at the nearest crystal. It was beautiful in a way, but it also felt dangerous. The humming seemed to get louder when he wasn't paying attention to it, like it was trying to hypnotize him. I don't know, he said finally, but we're going to find out. The 4 crew members of the UES Horizon stood in the empty streets of Denver, surrounded by the evidence of a civilization that had simply vanished. They might be the only humans left in the solar system, but they weren't going to give up without a fight. Above them, the crystal structures continued their strange humming, as if they were waiting for something or someone. 3 months had passed since Jake Morrison and his crew found Earth empty. They had set up a base in an old military facility outside Denver. The place had everything they needed: power, water, and communication equipment. But most importantly, it had thick walls and underground bunkers. Jake wasn't taking any chances. The crew had grown from 4 to 7 people. Tim Bradley had joined them after his cargo ship was found floating near Jupiter with no one on board. He was a good engineer and knew how to fix almost anything. The other 2 newcomers had arrived just yesterday. Dr. Helen Ross came from a deep space research station that had been studying distant stars. Her station had been too far away when whatever happened to Earth occurred. She brought disturbing news about other worlds. It's not just Earth, Helen told the group as they sat around a table in the base's main room. 12 other planets have gone silent in the past year. All of them had the same thing happen. Everyone just disappeared. Jake leaned forward. What do you mean, 12 other planets? I mean exactly that, Helen said. Worlds with millions of people, sometimes billions. One day they're sending normal communications, the next day nothing. When scout ships investigated, they found the same thing you found here. Empty cities, no bodies, and those crystal structures. Amy Walsh looked up from her computer. She had been trying to decode signals from the crystals for weeks. So this has happened before? Many times, Helen nodded. But here's what's strange. Most of the galaxy knows about it. There's something called the Galaxy Council, a group of alien civilizations that have been dealing with this problem for years. Danny Torres stopped working on his equipment. Aliens? Real aliens? Very real, Helen said. And they're scared. They call these disappearances the silence. According to my research, they've been retreating deeper into the galaxy, abandoning the outer worlds whenever the silence hits. Lisa Carter shook her head. So they just run away? They don't try to fight back? Apparently not, Helen replied. They seem to think it's better to lose some worlds than risk losing everything. Jake stood up and walked to the window. He could see one of the crystal structures in the distance, still humming, with its strange blue light. Tell us what else you know. Helen opened her tablet and showed them a star map. Red dots marked the locations of dead worlds. The pattern suggests whatever is doing this is moving inward from the galaxy's edge. Earth was one of the furthest out, which means we were hit early in this wave. Wave? Tim Bradley asked. It happens in cycles, Helen explained. Every few hundred years, the silence spreads across a section of the galaxy. Entire civilizations disappear. Then it stops for a while, and life goes back to normal. Until the next wave, Jake said grimly. Exactly. Amy turned her computer screen toward the group. I've been analyzing the signals from those crystal things. They're definitely communicating with something, but not in any language or code I recognize. The signals are getting stronger. Stronger how? Jake asked. More frequent. More complex. It's like they're reporting to someone or something, telling them about us. The room went quiet. Everyone understood what that might mean. Tim Bradley broke the silence. So what do? Pack up and run like everyone else? No, Jake said firmly. We find out what happened to our people. 8 billion humans didn't just vanish into thin air, they're somewhere, and we're going to find them. Helen pulled up another file on her tablet. There might be a way. I've been studying the quantum signatures from Earth's main communication array. The last transmission before everyone disappeared was very unusual. What kind of unusual? Lisa asked. It wasn't a normal broadcast. The array was configured for something called quantum tunneling communication. That's technology we barely understand, let alone use regularly. Jake sat back down. What does that mean? It means someone knew this was coming, Helen said. The transmission was sent just moments before the silence hit Earth. It contains fragments of what looks like a warning, but it's encoded in a way that suggests our government had contact with either the Galaxy Council or whatever forces behind the disappearances. Amy's fingers flew over her keyboard. Can we decode it? I've been trying, but we need more processing power and better quantum equipment. Danny raised his hand. The military base here has some advanced computers in the underground levels. I've been working on getting them online. Good, Jake said. Make that your top priority. A new voice spoke from the doorway. You might want to make room for more people too. Everyone turned to see a man in a military uniform standing in the entrance. He was tall and looked like he had seen combat before. I'm Captain Roy Martinez, the man said. I've got 12 ships full of humans who were off-world when this happened. We saw your signals and came to investigate. Jake stood up and shook the captain's hand. How many people? About 300, Roy replied. Mix of military, civilians, and scientists. We've been searching the outer colonies for survivors. Any luck? Roy's expression darkened. We found a few scattered groups, but most of the colonies are empty too. Whatever hit Earth hit them as well. Helen looked at the star map again. That fits the pattern. The silence doesn't just take one world, it clears out entire systems. Well, it missed us, Jake said. And now we're going to make sure it regrets that mistake. Captain Martinez smiled grimly. I like your attitude, Commander. My people are ready to fight if you've got a plan. We're working on one, Jake replied. First, we need to figure out where our people went. Then we're going to bring them back. Amy looked up from her computer. Commander, I'm picking up new signals from the crystals. They're different from before. Different how? Stronger, more organized, and they're all syncing up with each other. Through the window, they could see the crystal structures beginning to pulse with brighter light. The humming sound was getting louder, and it seemed to be coming from all directions now. Whatever those things are planning, Jake said, I don't think we have much time to stop it. The small group of human survivors stood in their makeshift base, surrounded by an empty world and mysterious alien technology. But they weren't running. They weren't hiding. They were preparing to fight back against something that had terrified an entire galaxy. Outside, the crystal structures continued, their ominous pulsing as if counting down to something terrible. 6 months after the silence began, the sky above Denver filled with alien ships. Jake Morrison watched through binoculars as massive vessels descended through the clouds. They were unlike anything humans had ever built, smooth, flowing shapes that seemed to bend light around them. How many? Captain Roy Martinez asked, standing beside Jake on the observation deck of their base. At least 50 big ones, Jake replied, and hundreds of smaller craft. Amy Walsh ran up the stairs, her communication equipment beeping frantically. Commander, they're trying to talk to us. Multiple frequencies, different languages. Can you understand any of it? Not yet, but the computer is working on translation patterns. Dr. Helen Ross joined them, carrying her tablet. The quantum signatures match what I've seen in the research data. These are ships from the Galaxy Council. The same aliens who have been running from the silence? Roy asked. The same ones, Helen confirmed. Jake lowered his binoculars. Then they're in for a surprise. We're not running. The largest alien ship landed in a field about a mile from the human base. It was the size of a city block and made no sound as it touched down. Smaller ships formed a protective circle around it. They're being careful, Jake observed. They probably expect to find another dead world. Amy's equipment crackled to life. A voice spoke in heavily accented but understandable English. Human. Survivors, this is Ambassador Veltar of the Axiom Republic. We request peaceful contact. Jake took the microphone from Amy. This is Commander Jake Morrison. You're welcome to approach, but keep your weapons powered down. There was a pause before the alien replied. You speak as if you have authority here. How many of your species survive? Enough, Jake said simply. An hour later, two figures approached, the human base on foot. They were tall and thin with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They wore simple robes and carried no visible weapons. Jake met them at the base entrance, along with Roy, Helen, and a few others. The aliens stopped a few feet away and studied the humans with obvious curiosity. I am Ambassador Veltar, the taller alien said. This is High Counselor Zethka of the Stellar Confederation. We expected to find an empty world. Sorry to disappoint. You, Jake replied. You misunderstand, Veltar said. We are pleased to find survivors, but we are also confused. The silence has taken 12 worlds in this sector. No species has ever resisted it successfully. Helen stepped forward. We didn't resist it. We just weren't here when it happened. But you returned, Zethka said, speaking for the first time. Her voice was higher than Veltar's, but equally serious. Most species evacuate their survivors to safe worlds. Why did you come back? Because this is our home, Jake said, and because our people are still here somewhere. The two aliens exchanged a look that needed no translation. They thought the humans were crazy. The disappeared do not return, Veltar said gently. In all our records, spanning thousands of years, no one taken by the silence has ever come back. Then, your records are about to change, Roy said. Veltar's large eyes widened slightly. You cannot seriously intend to fight the silence. It is a force beyond comprehension. Our greatest scientists have studied it for centuries without understanding its true nature. Maybe that's your problem, Jake said. Too much studying, not enough fighting. Helen opened her tablet and showed the aliens her research data. We've been analyzing the crystal structures left behind. They're not just markers or monuments. They're dimensional anchors. Zethka leaned forward to look at the tablet. Dimensional anchors? What do you mean? The people who disappeared weren't killed, Helen explained. They were transported to another dimension, another reality. The crystals are keeping the doorway open. That is impossible, Veltar said. Interdimensional travel is purely theoretical. So, was faster than light travel until someone built it, Jake pointed out. Amy joined the group carrying a portable scanner. We've been monitoring the crystal structures for months. The energy signatures are getting stronger and they're all connected to each other in a network. A network? Zethka repeated. You mean they communicate? More than that, Amy said. They're coordinated. Whatever intelligence is behind this, it's using the crystals to maintain control over the transported populations. Veltar was quiet for a long moment. If what you say is true, then the silence is not just a destructive force. It is collecting civilizations for some purpose. That's what we think, Jake said, and we're going to find out what that purpose is. How? Zethka asked. By following our people, Jake replied. We're going to use the crystals to open our own doorway. Both aliens stepped back in alarm. That is madness, Veltar said. You could destabilize the local space-time continuum. Or we could rescue 8 billion humans and however many aliens have been taken over the centuries, Roy countered. The risk is too great, Zethka said. This is why the Council voted to evacuate the Outer Rim. It is better to lose some worlds than to risk everything. Jake looked at the two aliens with something approaching pity. That's where you're wrong. Running away just makes the problem bigger. Every world you abandon makes the silence stronger. You cannot know that, Veltar protested, can't I? Jake pointed to the crystal structures visible in the distance. Those things are getting brighter every day, more active. Whatever's behind them is preparing for something big. Helen nodded. The quantum readings suggest the dimensional barriers are weakening. If we're right about the collection theory, then the silence is almost ready to move to the next phase. Which Is? Zethka asked. Invasion. Jake said grimly. Why just take people when you can take entire realities? The aliens were silent, processing this possibility. Your council has been fighting this wrong, Roy said. You've been treating it like a natural disaster, something to avoid rather than something to stop. And what do you propose? Veltar asked. Jake smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to cause trouble. This is not a joke, Zethka said. The silence has consumed entire star systems. Then it's time someone gave it indigestion, Jake replied. Veltar looked at his companion, then back at the humans. You are either very brave or very foolish. Probably both, Amy said cheerfully. But that's never stopped us before. The aliens had come to Earth expecting to find another dead world. Instead, they found something that would change everything. Humans who refused to run away from the impossible. The first meeting between humanity and the Galaxy Council was about to become something much more important, the beginning of the first real resistance against the silence. Above them, the crystal structures pulsed with increasing intensity, as if they sensed that their long reign of terror was about to face its first serious challenge. The Galaxy Council debate had been going on for 3 weeks. Jake Morrison sat in the huge meeting hall aboard the Council's command ship, watching dozens of alien species argue about humanity's plan. Some looked like giant insects, others were made of living crystal, and a few seemed to be nothing but energy floating in special containers. The humans are insane, declared Council member Thrix, a creature that looked like a walking tree. Their plan will destroy everything we have worked to preserve. Ambassador Veltar stood up to respond. Over the past weeks, he had become something of a supporter of the human approach. With respect, Council member Thrix, what exactly have we preserved? We have lost 17 worlds in the past 2 years alone. Better to lose some worlds than to lose everything, replied High Counselor Zethka. But Jake noticed she didn't sound as certain as she had before. Dr. Helen Ross activated her presentation. The holographic display showed Earth's quantum communication array, now modified with alien technology. The plan is not as dangerous as you think. We're not trying to destroy the dimensional barriers. We're trying to control them. Control them how? Asked Council Member Vex, a being that looked like liquid metal in a humanoid shape. By reversing the collection process, Helen explained. The crystal structures are anchors that hold open doorways between dimensions. If we can overload those anchors with the right frequency, we can force the doorways to work in reverse. Jake stood up. Think of it like a drain in a bathtub. Right now, everything is flowing out of our dimension into theirs. We want to make it flow back. And if you fail? Asked Thrix. If you destabilize the local space-time matrix? Then we'll be in the same situation we're in now, Jake replied. Dead worlds and missing people. At least this way we're trying to do something about it. Captain Roy Martinez had been quiet during most of the debate, but now he spoke up. My species has a saying, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Many of the aliens looked confused by the reference, but Veltar seemed to understand. You mean that doing nothing guarantees failure? Exactly, Roy said. Dr. Sam Parker, a scientist who had joined the survivors from a research station near Pluto, presented the next part of their plan. We've run computer simulations using the Council's data on previous silence events. The pattern shows that each collection cycle makes the dimensional barriers weaker. Weaker how? Asked Zethka. Each time the silence takes a world, it has to punch a hole through reality, Sam explained. Those holes never fully close. After hundreds of cycles, the fabric between dimensions is like Swiss cheese. Swiss cheese? Several aliens asked at once. Full of holes, Jake clarified. The point is the barriers are already unstable. We're not making things worse. We're working with what's already there. Council Member Vex flowed forward. Even if your theory is correct, how do you plan to test it without risking everyone? Security Chief Linda Hayes had been waiting for this question. She was a former military engineer who knew how to solve practical problems. We start small. There's a crystal structure in downtown Denver that's smaller than the others. We use it for our first test. And if the test fails catastrophically? Thrix demanded. Then we'll know quickly, Linda said with a shrug that was very human. Better to find out now than when we're trying to save 8 billion people. Veltar looked around the assembly hall. The humans raise a valid point. We have been retreating for so long that we have forgotten how to advance. We retreat because we are wise, Zethka said. We have survived for thousands of years by avoiding conflicts we cannot win. Have you, though? Jake asked. Survived, I mean. You've been losing worlds for centuries. How many civilizations have been completely erased by the silence? The hall went quiet. It was a question none of the council members wanted to answer. 43 species have been completely eliminated, Veltar said finally. Billions of individuals gone without a trace. And how many more will be lost if this continues? Roy asked. All of us, eventually, admitted Council Member Vex. The silence is moving toward the galaxy core. In perhaps 1,000 years, it will reach our most protected worlds. Jake looked around the assembly. So your choice isn't between safety and risk. It's between dying slowly or dying quickly. Unless we fight back, Helen added. Unless we try something different. Young engineer Paul Anderson had been studying the alien technology for weeks. He stood up nervously. I think I know why the silence has been so successful against other species. Explain, Zethka said. Every species the Council has told us about followed similar patterns when the silence came, Paul said. They tried to evacuate in an orderly fashion. They followed protocols. They did what their governments told them to do. As civilized beings should, Thrix said stiffly. But humans don't do that, Paul continued. When the silence came to Earth, some humans were probably trying to study it. Others were trying to fight it. Some were trying to hide and others were trying to communicate with it. We were doing dozens of different things at the same time. Chaos, Zethka said disapprovingly. Exactly, Paul said with a grin. And chaos might be what saved us. Dr. Helen Ross nodded. Paul's right. The collection process seems to work best on ordered, predictable populations. When faced with chaos and resistance, it becomes unstable. You're saying that being disorganized is an advantage? Veltar asked. We prefer the term flexible, Jake said. But yes. Every human who was off-world when the silence hit was probably doing something different, something unexpected. That's why we survived when others didn't. Linda Hayes activated another display. We've been monitoring the crystal structures for the past month. Every time we do something unpredictable near them, their energy patterns fluctuate. Fluctuate how? Several council members asked. They seem to have trouble processing random human behavior, Linda explained. Yesterday we had someone play music near one of the crystals. The whole network went offline for 6 minutes. The aliens stared at her in amazement. Music disabled an ancient cosmic horror? Thrix asked in disbelief. Jazz music, Amy Walsh clarified, joining the conversation. Specifically, improvised jazz. The more random and creative it was, the more the crystals seemed to struggle with it. Veltar leaned back in his chair. This explains much. The silence has never encountered a species like humans before. We are all too orderly. Too predictable, Jake agreed. You've survived by following rules and avoiding risks, but sometimes the best way to survive is to break all the rules. And if you're wrong? Zethka asked quietly. Jake looked at her seriously. Then we'll die trying to save our people instead of dying while running away from the problem. That's a trade most humans would make. The debate continued for several more hours, but Jake could see that something had changed. The council members were no longer asking if the human plan would work. They were asking how they could help make it work. Finally, Veltar called for a vote. All in favor of supporting the human dimensional rescue operation. The vote wasn't unanimous, but it was close enough. For the first time in centuries, the Galaxy Council was going to fight back against the silence. Outside the command ship, the crystal structures on Earth pulsed with increasing urgency. as if they sensed that their ancient enemy was finally preparing to strike back. The attack began at dawn. Jake Morrison watched from the command center as massive dark ships emerged from tiers in space itself. They were nothing like the Galaxy Council vessels. These were angular, threatening shapes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "The Harvester has arrived," Dr. Helen Ross said grimly. Through weeks of research, they had learned the true identity behind the silence. It wasn't a natural force or even a living species. It was an ancient, artificial intelligence that had been collecting civilizations for millions of years. "How many ships?" Captain Roy Martinez asked. "Too many to count," replied Amy Walsh from her communications station. "They're coming through, dimensional rifts all over the planet." Jake activated the base-wide communication system. "All teams, this is Morrison. Operation Homecoming is now active. Execute your assignments." Across Earth, human teams moved into position near the crystal structures. Each team had a modified quantum transmitter, built using a combination of human engineering and alien technology. The plan was simple in concept but terrifying in execution. They would overload every crystal anchor simultaneously, forcing the dimensional doorways to reverse. Engineer Rachel Porter led the team at the Denver site. "Transmitter is online," she reported. "Crystal structure is responding to our frequency." "Same here," called Craig Bennett from the New York team. "But the crystals are fighting back. Energy readings are going crazy." That was expected. The Harvester wouldn't give up its collected civilizations without a fight. Above them, the dark ships began their assault. But instead of the overwhelming firepower everyone expected, they released waves of the same energy that had originally taken Earth's population. "It's trying to finish the job," Helen realized. "The Harvester wants to collect the remaining humans." "Too bad for it," Jake said. "We're not standing still this time." The quantum transmitters activated in sequence. The first crystal structure in Los Angeles exploded in a shower of blue light. Where it had stood, a shimmering portal opened. Through it, confused humans began stumbling back into their own dimension. "It's working," Rachel shouted over the radio. "People are coming back." But the Harvester wasn't giving up. The dark ships focused their attacks on the quantum transmitters, trying to stop the reversal process. "Steve Murphy here," came a voice from the Chicago team. "We're under heavy fire. Not sure how long we can hold position." Communications officer Steve Murphy and his team were pinned down behind an overturned truck, but they kept their transmitter running. The Chicago crystal structure was one of the largest, and thousands of people were pouring through the dimensional rift it created. Jake made a decision that would have horrified the Galaxy Council. "All teams abandon defensive positions, get close to the crystals, and start acting human." "Sir?" several voices asked at once. "You heard me. Be unpredictable. Do whatever comes naturally. The Harvester's technology can't handle chaos." What followed was the strangest battle in human history. Instead of taking cover and following military tactics, the rescue teams began acting on pure human instinct. In Miami, engineer Paul Anderson started singing while he worked on his transmitter. The local crystal structure's energy field flickered and dimmed. In Seattle, Security Chief Linda Hayes began telling jokes over the radio while dodging energy blasts. The Harvester's targeting systems seemed to lose track of her. "This is insane," Veltar said from the Galaxy Council command ship. "Your people are acting like this is a game." "No," Jake replied. "They're acting like humans, and it's working." The dimensional rifts were opening faster now, not just on Earth, but on all 12 worlds that had been taken by the silence. Millions of displaced beings from dozens of species began returning to their home dimensions. But the Harvester had one final strategy. Instead of trying to stop individual rescue teams, it began targeting the quantum foundation of local spacetime itself. "Commander," Helen called out urgently, "the Harvester is trying to collapse this entire section of the galaxy. If it can't keep its collection, it's going to destroy everything." "How long do we have?" "Minutes, maybe less." Jake looked at the tactical display. The dark ships were converging on Earth, preparing for some kind of massive energy discharge that would tear apart the dimensional barriers completely. "Roy, get your ships ready for a kamikaze run," Jake ordered. "Already on it," Roy replied. His small fleet of human vessels was moving to intercept the Harvester's main ship. But the Galaxy Council surprised everyone. Led by Veltar and Zethka, the alien fleet suddenly broke from their defensive positions and joined the attack. "We have hidden behind fear for too long," Veltar announced over the communication channels. "Today we fight." The battle became a chaotic mix of human recklessness and alien technology. Human pilots flew impossible maneuvers that no sane being would attempt. Alien weapons fired with precision that had been perfected over millennia. The Harvester's artificial intelligence, designed to handle predictable civilizations, couldn't cope with the combination of human chaos and alien coordination. "The main ship's shields are failing," reported Amy. "Whatever's controlling their fleet is having trouble processing our attack patterns." Jake saw his chance. "All rescue teams, maximum power to the transmitters. Pour everything into the dimensional rifts." The crystal structures across Earth began to overload simultaneously. Instead of the controlled reversal they had planned, the dimensional barriers started collapsing completely. "We're losing containment," Helen warned. "The rifts are expanding beyond our control." "Good," Jake said. "Let them expand." "But the space-time distortions." "We'll destroy the Harvester's collection network," Jake finished. "Sometimes you have to break something to fix it." The expanding dimensional rifts reached the Harvester's main ship. The ancient artificial intelligence that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years found itself caught in the same trap it had used on countless civilizations. But instead of being collected, it was being torn apart by the chaotic interaction of multiple dimensions colliding. "The Harvester is fragmenting," reported alien sensors. "Its control network is collapsing." Across the galaxy, on every world that had been touched by the silence, the remaining crystal structures began to crack and shatter. The dimensional prison that had held so many civilizations was finally breaking open. 3 hours later, it was over. The dark ships had either been destroyed or fled back to whatever dimension they came from. The Harvester's intelligence was scattered across multiple realities, no longer able to coordinate its collection efforts. Earth's cities were full of confused but grateful humans who had spent months in an alien dimension. The other rescued worlds reported similar scenes of reunion and celebration. Ambassador Veltar met with Jake in the ruins of downtown Denver. Around them, human work crews were already cleaning up the damage and planning reconstruction. "Your species never ceases to amaze us," Veltar said. "We spent centuries running from the Harvester, and you defeated it in a single day." "We had help," Jake replied. "And we had something the Harvester didn't understand." "Which was?" Jake smiled and gestured to the humans working around them. Some were organizing relief efforts with military precision. Others were setting up street musicians to entertain the workers. A few were already planning memorial services for the lost, while others were designing festivals to celebrate the victory. "We had the most powerful force in the universe," Jake said. "Human stubbornness. When someone tells us something is impossible, we take that as a personal challenge." Veltar looked around at the controlled chaos of human recovery efforts. "The Galaxy Council has much to learn from your species." "And we have much to learn from yours," Jake replied. "Maybe it's time we all stopped running from the impossible and started making it possible instead." Above them, the stars shone brightly in a sky no longer threatened by the silence. Humanity had done what it did best. It had looked at an unstoppable force and refused to get out of the way. The galaxy would never be the same.